Little Therese, Chapter 6. What we sow, we shall reap. Our Lord rewarded Thérèse for her sacrifices by giving her great self-control. One Sunday, she had been for a walk in the fields and had gathered an armful of daisies, poppies, cornflowers, and ears of golden corn. She came home flushed with pleasure and was just beginning to arrange her flowers when her grandmother asked for them for her altar. Thérèse gave them all up, one by one. She was ready to cry, though only Céline, who knew her so well, saw this, for Thérèse did not show how much she minded. But when Céline questioned her afterwards, she owned what a big act she had had to make to let all her flowers be taken from her. One might almost say that from the dawn of reason, Thérèse had acquired this habit of giving in without grumbling or asking for anything back. Her natural character would have been a very difficult one had she not overcome herself early. She was so lively and restless that it was hard for her to apply her mind to anything, or to stay still for 2 minutes together, and all her mother's energy was needed to teach her the alphabet. When lesson time drew near, she used to hide, but after a while she was sorry for this and allowed herself to be kept a prisoner on her mother's knee while she tried to understand and to repeat the name of the letter pointed out to her in the big book. Her sisters loved to listen to her, and her father would smile over his newspaper, showing plainly that he too was listening to the answers of his little queen and was interested in her progress. Besides being impetuous, Thérèse was naturally inclined to be very obstinate, as the following incident will show. One day, her mother said to her, "Thérèse, darling, if you will kiss the ground, I will give you a halfpenny." In those days, a halfpenny was a fortune to her, but holding herself erect, she promptly answered, "No, thank you, Mama. I would rather go without the halfpenny." Sooner than make this little act of humility, she preferred to lose the promised reward. With such a character, the child might have grown up proud and selfish. She herself tells us that had she not been brought up carefully, she might have become very wicked, and perhaps have lost her soul. But she had so true a sense of right and wrong that it was enough to tell her once, "That is not right. It hurts our Lord," and she never wanted to do it again. About this time, Thérèse had a dream which showed her that a good child is an object of terror to the demons, who fly from it angry and humbled. One night, she dreamt that she was walking alone in the garden, when, all at once, she saw near the arbor 2 ugly little devils dancing on a barrel of lime, in spite of the heavy irons attached to their feet. At first, they glared at her with flaming eyes. Then, as if seized with sudden terror, they jumped quick as lightning into the barrel, came out somehow at the other end, and hid themselves in the laundry, which opened into the garden. Finding them so cowardly, Thérèse overcame her fear and went to the window to see what they were going to do. The wretched little demons were running about on the tables, not knowing how to escape her gaze. Now and then, they timidly approached the window, but finding her still there, they scampered off, looking the picture of misery. A deep truth lies hidden in this dream. The devils are mere cowards who can do nothing to a soul in a state of grace, for they have not even the courage to meet the eyes of a little child. Perhaps you think that Thérèse was too pious to care for fun. On the contrary, she was always bright and happy. She loved the country, the tall trees, the flowers, and the little birds in their nests. She was a splendid runner for her age and enjoyed nothing so much as swinging. It used to terrify her mother to see her so high, but Thérèse herself was absolutely fearless and shouted with delight. As soon as her father came home in the evening, she would rush to meet him and seat herself on his foot. He would carry her about in this fashion through the house and garden. Then, lifting her high in the air, he would put her on his shoulder and set her down at last with a big kiss. Chapter 7. Death of her mother. Although Thérèse was only 4, she knew that heaven is our true home, and that in this world we cannot have everything we want. She knew what it meant to be separated from those we love, for she sorely missed her sister Pauline, who was a boarder at the Visitation Convent of Le Mans. Poor little Thérèse was often to be seen on the balcony outside her room, gazing wistfully towards the station. Once, Marie, finding her there, said, "What are you doing, Thérèse?" "I'm looking to see if Pauline is coming back," was the answer. But this separation was only a shadow of that which was to come a few months later, when our Lord took from the children their pious and devoted mother. During the illness of Madame Martin, Thérèse and Céline were often sent to spend the day with a friend. Instead of this being a pleasant change, it only distressed and troubled them. They instinctively clung to each other, as if oppressed with the knowledge that something very sad was happening at home. One morning, as they were on their way to their friend's house, Céline suddenly remembered that they had not said their prayers. She whispered to her little sister, "Must we tell that we haven't said our prayers?" "Oh, yes," came the unhesitating reply. On their arrival, therefore, Céline timidly told the lady, who took them to a big room and left them alone. Then, for the first time, it flashed on poor Thérèse what the loss of a mother means. And in a storm of grief, she sobbed out, "Oh, it's not like our mamma. She always heard us say our prayers." Madame Martin died on August 28, 1877. Thérèse was present when her mother received extreme unction. She heard her father's stifled sobs, and when all was over, was lifted up to kiss her mother's icy forehead. She saw, too, the empty coffin, which had been placed upright in the passage. These impressions were never effaced from her mind. When the funeral was over, the 5 orphan children returned to the desolate home. They were gazing at each other in awe-struck silence when the nurse, turning pityingly to the 2 younger ones, exclaimed, "Poor little things, you have no mother now." At once, Céline threw herself into Marie's arms, crying out, "You shall be my mother." It might have been expected that Thérèse, who always followed her sister's example, would have imitated her in this particularly, as Marie was her godmother. But it occurred to her that Pauline might be hurt at not having a little girl too. So she looked at her lovingly and exclaimed in her turn, "And Pauline will be my mother." Monsieur Martin bore his great loss with perfect resignation, forgetting his own sorrow that he might devote himself to his little motherless daughters. Being uncertain what to do for the best, he consulted his friends. Some advised him to remain in Alençon. Others suggested that he should send his children to a boarding school. Others again urged him to take them to live near their mother's family. The thought of leaving a place so full of tender memories as Alençon was very painful to him. His business was there, and he had many devoted friends. Moreover, outside the town, he had built himself a charming little country house, where for many years he had spent happy holidays with his children. He did not, however, hesitate long. His brother-in-law, Monsieur Guérin, lived in Lisieux, and he decided to settle in the same town.